Guggenheim Partners reporting that Scott Minerd, managing partner and global CIO, has died. He died Wednesday afternoon from a heart attack during his regular workout. Our condolences and best wishes to his friends and his family during this horrible time. Scott Minerd was just 63. Right now on the phone, we're joined by Bloomberg's Scarlet, who knew Scott Minerd quite well. Scar, what's your reaction here?
I'm still in shock. I can't believe it. He was so young, 63 years old, and really at the height of his influence and his ability to shape market thinking. He was really an original thinker, one who was not afraid to go against the grain, push back against the consensus, not afraid to make big calls. I think we all recall some of his calls about Bitcoin getting to $50,000, and also not afraid to admit when he was wrong as well. I have very fond memories of him, particularly when I asked him to share a story from his youth. We called it a big money mistake, and he went back in time and thought about how he had made this property investment when he was at his first job at Price Waterhouse. And he really framed it nicely for the audience who knows him primarily as a market commentator, as someone who speaks with Fed officials and talks to big investors and is brought out to speak with clients. He talked about how he was not as smart as he thought he was, and all the knowledge that he accumulated in college, at business school, and at his job did not really pan out when it came time to actually put his words into action in making this one particular real estate investment as a young 20-year-old man.
Yep.
With his first job out of college. And so he shared about how that was very humbling for him, and it really caused him to think about how he would go forward with being much more skeptical, much more questioning of conventional wisdom.
Scarlet, I remember watching that interview, and I have to say, it did make me smile listening to what he had to say and his candor speaking about that. What do you think made him the kind of person that was able to speak his mind on such a range of subjects and so often hit the nail right on the head?
He talked to lots of different people. He always gave them his full attention and really listened to their rationale for what they were thinking about, and took into account where they're coming from, their lived experience, and folded that into how he examined and how he assessed the broader world around him. I found him extraordinarily thoughtful, and he did not come at you with any sense of preconceived notion about this is who you are and therefore this is how you should think. He really listened to everyone that he came into contact with, and I think it's easy to say that people do that in this industry, but it doesn't always come out that way.
No, not at all. And I should point out, Scarlet, so Mark Walter, Guggenheim Partners CEO and a founder, in the statement saying, I have known Scott for over 30 years, and we were partners much of that time. Scott was a key innovator and thought leader who was instrumental in building Guggenheim Investments into the global business it is today. He will be greatly missed by all. My deepest condolences are with his husband, family, and loved ones. Also joining us to talk about this, Tom Keene, Bloomberg surveillance anchor, interviewed Scott nearly every Fed special, also knows him quite well. Tom, we were just talking about the idea generation that Scott would infuse within Guggenheim. Talk me through that experience.
Well, it's not only Guggenheim, Alex, but this goes back quite a way. We have to remember that Mr. Minerd, through just sheer brilliance, had the joy, like Scarlet Fu, of retiring at 37. And this is a guy, to say he was a bond king barely describes his acclaim and thought process at bond transactions and linking it into broader macroeconomics, which is what he did in the 90s. I think the most qualified person on Scott Minerd would be Bob Diamond of that era. This was in the European credit markets, and what Scott Minerd did was magical and hugely profitable for the firms he was associated with. I believe, Alex, he retired 7 times. I'm making jest of him just so he could see his beloved Dodgers. But the answer is this is a guy who couldn't retire, and he came back and he helped build Guggenheim.
But Tom, he spoke with a clarity that was rare.
Yes.
And you do wonder whether there is a generational shift here that is taking place. He is sort of emblematic of a period in time, of a series of characters within this market that felt that they could speak.
Well,
why do you think that made him different? He felt he could speak.
I said this on radio moments ago to Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller, which was the absolute distinguishing feature of him and why he was so different in our Fed coverage as well, is this guy wasn't some fancy CFA. He wasn't some fancy degree, even though he came out of Wharton. I'll give him that. He was a CPA. This is a guy who approached the business with the rigor of a certified public accountant, and that's what made him a different guy every step of the way, every step along the way. His ability to do the critical thinking process different was absolutely unique.